welcome Jeff. Jeff started his chaplaincy in college with the South Carolina State Park System, providing spiritual support and worship services for staff and campers during the summers. Jeff graduated from Bob Jones University with a degree in guidance and counseling in 1995. He taught at the Bible College of East Africa upon graduation. He then graduated from the Master's Seminary in 2000 with a Master's of Divinity. During seminary, he assisted in the start of Master's Academy International in India and a children's home and school in Pune, India. Upon graduation, Jeff began his professional certified chaplain training at USC Medical Center. Jeff became a chaplain with Kaiser Permanente South Bay Medical Center and Kaiser Mental Health Los Angeles. Jeff was widowed in 2004 due to his wife Linda's suicide. Jeff raised his son Zachary and daughter Madison as a single parent from the time they were 1 and 2 years old. Jeff lives in Clemson. He came to me from his sister-in-law recommended him to me. I have never met you, Jeff, but I've talked to you on the phone. Welcome.
Thank you so much. My pleasure to be here, and thank you guys for the kind words. This reminds me a little bit maybe what heaven will be like. So there's so many people from all over the place, and such a blessing, and just reconnect, see people from India and California and different places. My heart is very connected to all those places. And thank you guys. Let me see if I can figure this out. And I just wanted to share with you too that I just left a family with hospice. They were being excavated as a young man. I just had his mother-in-law actually about a year ago, and the whole family was there and surrounded the bedside, and so this is a blessing to be able to do this every day, and then to come here and be with you guys. And I love the title is Let His Light Shine. And I think there's no more of an urgent need in our world today than this, to let His light shine, and let the light of God, the light of Christ to shine. And it does shine anyway, but we have the opportunity to be a part of what God is already doing. And we see such a need for it in our communities. I was at a small little fast food place just a couple of weeks ago, and I was standing in line. It was a place that shouldn't be a lot of pressure. There was only one person in front of me, but that guy was pretty upset. He'd been standing there about 10 minutes, and he was angry with a person coming to take his order. And then they started arguing over the order, and then the manager came, and she said, "I'm so sorry, we're short staffed. We're short 2 people." And the young lady who was taking this person's order, she said, "Well, now you're short 3 people because I'm leaving." And I was thinking, man, I don't think this would be happening here, other than there's so much stress and pressure just going on an underlying level every day in people's lives. I just did a grief seminar with Thomas McAfee Funeral Home on Thursday and Friday. And we have a table there that we hand out pens and candy and stress balls. And usually stress balls are one of those things, everybody gets the candy. And the stress balls, we usually have a ton of them left. But this year, which is very unusual, every single one of those were gone. We give out hundreds of those. And people also, I noticed between the breaks, we're kind of stopping them and talking to them and telling them about our hospice and what we do. They were just coming to us, asking to sign up and talking to us, sharing their stories. And so there's a great void out there. There's a great kind of darkness overlying and a stress that we are dealing with, I think, worldwide. That is kind of unusual, I think, and definitely in our lifetime. And you see there, darkness fills voids, and darkness does not overtake light. That's the beautiful thing, is that just naturally in science, darkness doesn't take light away. Light overshadows darkness. But when there's a void, when there's just a kind of a vacuum of space, that's when darkness comes in, and that's when people kind of get lost. In fact, that's really what darkness means, or void means. It's unoccupied or vacant. The light is absence. It's an adjective. It's a description. It doesn't do anything. It's just there. It's just present. And I wanted to share a story with you about that feeling of darkness. And we probably all can imagine, if we turn off the lights in our room. I've been in India several times where the lights just randomly turn off. And I would ask them, so why does that happen? And I said, you must be American. This is normal. And then we in America here, the past couple of years, we've been dealing with that as well. But when that happens, unless you're prepared, then you're just in complete darkness. I was actually on a road trip with my girlfriend, she's actually a physician, a hospice medical director. And so we were kind of getting away for some meeting. We're meeting up with some friends up in the mountains, and she was kind of sleepy, kind of tired. So we pulled over at this rest stop, and I started driving. This was her car, and she said the lights are automatic. And I said, okay. So we pulled away from the rest stop, and the lights didn't come on. Also, we're out on like a 6-lane road, and complete darkness in the mountains. And so we didn't know what to do. If you stop, you're going to get run over by somebody. You can't see anything. You don't know where to go. You don't know where to stop. You don't know where to go forward. And so that all happens because suddenly the lights go out. And that's what we face in healthcare as we work with patients, is they face a lot of voids, a lot of different types and multiple voids in their life. When you have a patient come into the hospital or on hospice, many times they or family members facing job loss because of their health, or because of caring for their loved one. They're losing their health as well, their hobbies. I mean, I've seen grown men cry over golf and fishing. Actually have a painting here that if you guys can see that's Jesus and Peter. He actually he was an artist that was a patient who actually retouched that older painting. But one of his kind of therapies that he used was golf. When you have COPD and you can no longer get out and do that and walk and go out on the course, it's a huge loss, and there becomes a void. So this job loss, health, hobbies, independence is such a big loss for people, especially if they're going through some sort of dementia or dependence without having their extremities or legs or arms working. There's such a loss. And church is something that we go to for decades, and we're part of, and we're involved in. And then if we move off, no longer healthy enough to live on our own, we go to assisted living or stay home. Actually, our world is kind of facing this, that they no longer were able to attend church for a long period of time and began attending on Zoom. But it's such a change, it's such a void that happens. Family, we lose that. I mean, can you imagine if you, a couple of years ago before this, if you would have came and told your family that, hey, people are going to be dying alone in assisted living. So the family won't be able to come in, or they'll be looking through the window at the dying patient. Or even one of our facilities has this thing that looks like something that was out that you use with to interact with an alien. Was they called it the hug window, and that was these plastic arms and rubber gloves that the family could go to the window and put their hands in there and hug their loved one. But we couldn't imagine that, a couple of years ago. But that was such a loss, and that's something that people have been dealing with illness for their many lives. Have dealt with that loss of friends, home, finances, the loss of respect when you have a health issue, and especially with something like dementia, or if there's something like AOS where you can no longer use your arms or legs. But I was actually standing in line at a restaurant one time where it was like one of the buffets that you go up and pay your money and then get all your food you want. Well, this gentleman, he had AOS and his arms wouldn't work. He looked normal, but his arms wasn't working. So the people behind him began to get impatient, and they began to snicker and say things that I'm sure they didn't realize what was happening. They were just complaining that it was taking so long. But that's a kind of a respect that he lost, that he had to deal with. I was able to talk with him about that because he was actually in a support group that I did. And he said that's very common, happens all the time. So there's a respect, and also jobs, careers, marriage, if we go through a loss, purpose, plans, hope, spiritual connection. There's all sorts of voids that we deal with in our lives, and patients deal with that darkness can come in. And I have here on Matthew 6:22-24, it says, the eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? And this is the idea that that whatever we're dealing with, whatever situation that we're facing, is so important to where we look. Where do we set our eyes? Where do we set our focus and our concentration? And that affects not only your journey, but also those around you. Because I've sat with so many people dealing with grief and loss. And if their eye is darkened and they're looking at the darkness and not toward the hope of the journey, they begin attracting people around them who kind of have their that darkness kind of mindset as well, because our vibe that we put out attracts our tribe around us. So it's so important, no matter what voice that we're facing, that we set our eyes forward and upon God and upon the light. And that leads me to the light. The light is the Greek word phos, to shine. It's a verb. Where darkness is an adjective or a noun, a description, light is a verb. It speaks action. And so it immediately takes away the darkness. And then I have some descriptions here. Light is 186,282 miles per second, which is amazing. And then I love this, Albert Einstein's theory of special relativity. The closer matter approaches the speed of light, that matter's mass becomes infinite, which is amazing to think about, that the scripture uses, even from the beginning in Genesis, but all the way through, and we especially see it in John, the reference to light and to light in our spiritual walk. And I'm going to be looking at John 8:12 and some verses in there where Jesus says, I am the light. It says again, Jesus spoke to them saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. And this is such a beautiful description of what Jesus is sharing, and he uses his surroundings. He's really standing in the temple by the treasury. He's standing in the court of the women, and in this court of the women, because the temple's made up as you go in. There's the court of the Gentiles, and then the inner area was the court of the women, and then the next one was the court of the priests. So he's standing there during the Feast of the Tabernacle. Before that, back in chapter 7, he refers to himself as water, but in this, he's standing there in the court of the women, the courtyard of the women. There's 13 receptacles where people give money, and they're kind of like almost like those games, or probably like a horn where you throw money in and they become smaller. And sometimes they make me think of those games in restaurants where they kind of have a wide open, watch it spin. It's not quite like that, but it is a receptacles where they receive money, and each receptacle has a different function. They're kind of trumpet shaped, and he's standing over in verse 20. It tells us he's standing by the treasury, which is receptacles 8 through 13, and that was kind of like the general fund. And he was doing this during the Feast of the Tabernacles, and which is really, this is the Feast of the Tabernacle is the feast about the illumination, and where they were guided, Israel was guided through the wilderness for 40 years. And so they were there to celebrate. Part of that celebration was they would illuminate the court of the women with lights, with candelabras, and they would celebrate that they were guided by light, led by a pillar of fire by night and lighted by a cloud by day. And so if you could imagine, this was Jesus standing here, and either they may have been light. We don't really know what time of day this was, but they might have been lighting these and reminiscing about this time period, or they might have been coming by and putting these out. And this was and they said this was his ancient historian said the Israel and the temple, it looked like a diamond shining in the midst of the desert. And they would use a quote something like Isaiah 4:6 and 49:6, I will be light to the nations. And so it's actually saying this, and they also know that this is a reference, Isaiah 47, 49, 50. This was a reference to Jesus really saying the great I am reference, and he is the light, that he is the Messiah. And which is an encouragement that to them that, with this ritual as a memory, and you come together and do this, that really I am the light, which is also an encouragement to us as well, that he is the light that never goes out. He never allows us to walk in darkness. It's never extinguished. It's not something that we just look at or admire, but it moves, and we are to follow it. And so as we go and shine the light, as we work with patience, and we go into darkness, the good thing is there's not a lot of fighting that we have to do to get rid of the darkness. It's just the presence and the reflection of Christ is the darkness goes away because we are the active light representing Christ. That he knows the way out of ignorance, the way out of sickness and sorrow, the way out of darkness. And so as we minister, just our relationship is that light that shines, that just knowing him. And I see this more often than not. I'm someone who laughs a lot, so I can remember being at South Bay Kaiser, and someone coming up to me and saying, "Oh, I enjoy Your laugh has encouraged me. But lately, the past couple of years, I've just the fact that you may have some sort of spiritual peace and that you're smiling and have some hope and happiness just walking into a room. I've noticed people that would come up. Not it doesn't happen all the time, but more often lately is they said, "Man, you're happy. You got peace." And I think that's again, it's just the situation that we've been living in. Because the pandemic, we've been so isolated. America's gone through its 20-year war. Politically, we're divided. And socially, we got all the social media. And so we're more into ourselves than ever. And so there's a lot of pressures in society, even kids. Both my kids, my son just started Auburn this fall, and my daughter started in Emerson in Boston. The pressure on them, I remember when I started school, I applied just to the schools I was interested in going to, the 2 or 3 schools. They applied to about 15, and I thought, man, you guys are crazy doing that. But then I realized I was talking to their friends and reading about it and talking to them more, and they said, no, that's the average now. That's the norm, because there's so much pressure on that. So we just live in a world that has a lot of pressure, has a lot of voids, and especially this time period. And so that's where being a light is that we can display Christ on a daily basis is such a privilege. And I just want to share this. Heaven is not a place that you go when you die. Heaven is a promise that you receive today. Focus your eyes toward heaven each day, just like it was talking about in Matthew, and before each patient visit. And the way that we can do this is through prayer, just kind of focusing ourselves, through worship, taking that worship time, fasting, which is something that we don't really practice that much. I'm Baptist, we practice more eating than fasting, but it's definitely a practice that was in the scriptures constantly. Devotional time, just where we can set our eyes upon the light, upon a focus, that we can be a reflection of Christ, because we're a reflection of Christ, and it's just like the sun or the moon reflects the sun. The only thing that gets in the middle of that is the world, right? Is the eclipse. Is that when that's the only time you can't see. One for those is when the world is in between. And for us, the world being in between, most of us, is not that we're just going out and living worldly lives. It's that the pressures of the world, just sometimes it's ministry, sometimes it's finances, sometimes it's just busyness. Because every time we say yes to something, we're saying no to something else, and so we can get the pressures of the world sometimes get in the way between us being a reflection of the light and can get us down. I have this quote here. I put on another slide that's not on that one, but it's that old song. It's the total eclipse of the heart. Once upon a time, I was falling in love, but now I'm only falling apart. There's nothing I can do. It's a total eclipse of the heart. Man, sometimes that's us in our lives that we are facing. And so there's some ways to deal with that is some self-care, because we don't create apples with apples, right? We create apples with healthy fruit trees. And so for us, it's just setting that time for yourself to be determined with specific self-care, set appointments with yourself, focus on certain growth areas. And I have here, check your bulbs, which is every time we only got so many bulbs in our lives, right? So only got so much energy. So if you could imagine just a row of light bulbs, and you got one power source, every time you light another bulb, all the other bulbs get a little dimmer. And so it's just kind of keeping those in balance and where we want to see our focus and have our energy, and keeping those having that opportunity to do ministry and be a reflection, but also caring for ourselves as well, so that all areas of our life can shine brightly with the love of Christ. Thank you guys so much, and it's been an honor to be with you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, brother. Before you go, just in the next couple of minutes, if you have any questions for Jeff, you can type them in the chat box so we can ask them, or any comments about his presentation before we let him off. Thank you for sharing that about shining the light of Christ in our world. Please let us have your questions or comments before we bring on the next speaker. How this good? Anyone at all? Oh, praise God.
I saw someone asked me what PCC means, a professional certified chaplain.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Elizabeth writes a comment, Jeff, that was so wonderful. You are the light of Christ, from Liz. So shout out from Liz.
Oh, thanks.
Praise God. Amen. Well, thank you so much once again, Jeff. We appreciate all that you do in the space that God has placed you in. It's not by accident. Indeed, it's a space that needs a lot of light, like everywhere else, and you continue to shine that light, bringing hope to people that otherwise. And I appreciated, you presented the different areas of loss.
Yeah.
That was enlightening. That loss of respect, loss. I mean, loss is not. Sometimes people view loss as just loss of a loved one, a loss of a job, but loss, actually, there's a gamut of areas where loss is experienced.
Right. So much.
So that was very enlightening. Thank you so much for that.